What's good, Wizards fans? It's your host, the real Ed Oliver and Brandon Scott. Today we have special guest Cyrus from the Locked On Wizards podcast.
Oh, I don't have a last name?
Cyrus Saatsaz.
I have to give you crap for that. It's a hard name. I get it. I'm sorry.
From the Locked On Warriors podcast. We're going to talk about the Jordan Poole trade here. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you guys get podcasts. Cyrus, I just thought we were so cool. We're just gonna, keep it on a first name basis. But,
That's all good, dude. My last name, I was on The Price is Right. Oh, sorry, I was on The Price is Right 21 years ago or something like that. And I remember seeing the face of Rod Roddy, rest in peace, who's the MC, man, trying to pronounce, looking at my last name. The producers had spelled it out phonetically for him, but he still had to just stare at it. And it was a whole second of dead hair on that show. Hey, my last name's crazy, man. All good. I just giving you a hard time. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's a cool last name. I like your Twitter handle.
Thank you. Thank you, though.
I like your Twitter handle as well. Dog
Thanks,
Surf Roadshow as well. So make sure you guys follow him on Twitter. He's coming on today from the Locked On Warriors podcast just to talk about the trade and give us some insight about Jordan Poole and his time with the Warriors, what we can expect here in DC. And then at the end, we'll talk about Ryan Rollins and Pat Baldwin Jr. But just to start it off, we just want to start off with Jordan Poole and his journey since he was the 28th pick. Also, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. And then happy holiday, everybody. Happy 4th to everybody out there as well listening. So I just want to get started with Jordan Poole's journey, the 28th pick in the draft. How was his developmental process? Because I know he had a rocky rookie season, and then he developed into a guy that got huge minutes and a key player for the Warriors in their title run.
Yeah, the Washington Wizards just got a player who was the sixth man on a world title team. He's just a year removed from that. And look, he was the 28th pick in the draft. Sorry, I just experienced puberty there. He was the 28th pick in the draft. You don't expect a lot from a player drafted that low. So when he first came in, first of all, he was projected to go even lower. He was supposed to be a second round pick. The Warriors and supposedly Mike Dunleavy Jr. That was apparently his big draft pick in a year when he was the assistant GM. I think he was just a year removed from being a scout, and he was very high on Jordan Poole. The team listened to him, went with him. He was very inconsistent his rookie year, but then his second year, he spent a lot of time in the G League in Santa Cruz. That's where the Warriors G League team plays, and something changed there. That's where his game really developed. It was a combination of being more selective with his shot. It was a combination of having more court awareness in terms of his teammates. And when he came back from Santa Cruz, this was in 2021. All of a sudden he turned in. So you start seeing glimpses of the player he is now, the player that, earned a contract that pays him, 120 something million over 4 years, not including incentives. So yeah, he's, and then the championships year, you started seeing even more of it. He became the sixth man. As a starter, he's exemplary. He's not quite the same player coming off the bench. And then last year, his scoring went up, but almost everything else kind of stayed consistent from the year before, kind of regressed a little bit. But overall, look, for what you gave up, I think you got to steal. I think if you're a Wizards fan, you're stoked. This is a player who can, in theory, score 30 points a game. He might. I don't know what his usage rate is going to be with the Wizards, but you should be stoked, man. He's a good player.
Right, yeah, his usage rate is going to be pretty darn high because I think between him and Kuz, they're both going to be 1A, 1B. They're going to get a lot of shots up for sure. But I like hearing that about his work ethic. He's a guy, like you said, came from the G League, worked hard, improved, and I think he's going to come in here with a chip on his shoulder. So I'm excited to see what he does in DC because he's going to get way more of an opportunity here to be the lead guy for sure.
And just to add to that real quick, sorry to interrupt you, but for his work ethic, it's exemplary. Like Jordan Poole, I think that a huge reason why he even got the opportunities he did with the Warriors is because him and Steph were always 1A, 1B in terms of who was in the arena / gym first. He's got an exceptional work ethic. It's either him or Steph is always first to arrive. Him and Steph are always the last to leave. Work is not something he's afraid of doing, which is not something you say about every NBA player. So you're getting someone who does care. You're getting someone who does put in the effort to be the best player imaginable. So that's a huge positive for Jordan Poole. And I think Washington Wizards fans will be stoked on that.
Yeah, that gets me excited. That gets me pumped up because I believe that I think this change of scenery is going to be huge for him. And I think he's a player that can certainly ascend. Brandon, you can go ahead.
Agreed.
Oh, I agree too. So we're going to talk about there was a couple of videos about his interaction in the locker room. Obviously the video Draymond Green getting clocking him real quick, and then a couple of videos where getting mouthy a little bit. Steph had to talk to him. So as far as personality fit in the locker room, how's he viewed in Golden State? Is he looked at as a cancer in the locker room, or is he just a guy who's more like of a dog, got that attitude, he's got that chip, or is this a situation where a change of scenery can kind of emerge into a leader?
Yeah, I think a change of scenery was exactly what he needed. I definitely would not call him a cancer in the locker room. He talks. He talks. You know what, man? He's not afraid to talk smack with other players. His locker was right next to Draymond Green's. So the way I always described Jordan Poole and the Warriors was he's the little brother who sometimes got under your skin, because it wasn't just Draymond Green who kind of snapped. You saw Stephen Curry in a game get so frustrated by Jordan Poole's shot selection that he threw his mouthpiece. It flew into the stands, and so because of that, he got ejected. And Stephen Curry does not get ejected from games often. So, and then that same clip you're referring to, where he kind of pushed off Draymond when Draymond was trying to console him late in the season, he did the same thing to Klay Thompson. He's got emotion. He's an emotional player. He's not afraid of anything, really. I mean, so he'll talk smack. But I wouldn't definitely not call him a cancer. He's a good dude. Just him and Draymond, like, they were just two very alpha type A personalities. And they just clashed a lot there. The Michigan State thing, I think, was understated. That actually sometimes got those two going. But no, I would certainly not call him a cancer. He's a good dude. I would agree with what you said, which is that a change of scenery, I think, what was necessary. And I don't know who your head coach is. I sincerely apologize for that right now. I'm just brain farting there. But whoever the coach, who is it?
I'll give you a hint. It's it's the one. So we have one championship in our franchise. This guy's dad was the MVP.
Unseld?
There you go. Yep.
You got it.
So,
yep.
All right, so it's Unseld's kid. So Unseld's what the one thing they need to do with Jordan Poole is remind him constantly to not take difficult shots. That is his kryptonite. He sometimes, instead of passing the ball, instead of maybe attacking the paint, because he's good at that, he gets free throw attempts. He oftentimes will settle for these really difficult shots where he thinks he's Stephen Curry, and no one is Stephen Curry. And so that is where you will have issues with him. And whatever Unsold has to do to coach that out of him, if they can remind him, look, man, like, you don't have to force your deep shots. You have four other teammates on this floor. If you can coach that in Jordan Poole, you're going to get a phenomenal player, man.
Yeah, I agree, man. Very often in the NBA, sports period, that, guys that have passion, they label them, locker room cancers, or then you have issues. And I just don't agree with that assessment, man. I think that he has that drive. He has that dog in him, which I love, man. This past season, me and E, we said a lot that we need a roster full of dogs. Too much finesse. We need some dogs, man. I love his attitude. I love the way he talks. I love it. I love attitude, man. I'm an old school basketball guy, man. So I love people to talk smack, the dogs. What impressed me with him was that when we drafted Bilal Coulibaly, he was that first guy who sent that text to him. That impressed me, especially for a young guy. He's coming to the situation where he's looking at it like we are. It's a change of scenery. Time for me to kind of put my foot down and be that leader. And so I love everything I see from Jordan Poole so far as leadership. But as a player, man, look, between him and Kuz, they're going to shoot the ball. They definitely going to score, man. And I'm very, very excited to see both of these guys play together because
and at least for me, like championship experience is an insanely valuable intangible, right? I mean, you have two guys who have that. I mean,
Yep.
they've both been there and done that, so that's huge. No, I agree with you, man. Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good, man. It's going to be an exciting year. I mean, obviously we're a rebuilding team, but who says you can't be an exciting rebuilding team? So
exactly.
So before we move on, my man E's going to talk to y'all about PrizePicks tonight.
Yes, sir. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You can actually use PrizePicks tonight for the summer league. You can place wagers on over under on points for even the NBA summer league, which is going on right now. This is how it works. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will go score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch, includes NBA Summer League, NFL, MLB, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, safe, and fast withdrawals. Currently operational over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, so just to talk a little bit more about the pool party. I think I've seen on your show as well that you got a pool party shirt.
Yeah, it's a collector's item now, man. In fact, we sell it. Rick Barry and I, the Hall of Famer, we have like a little clothing company, and that's a collector's item, man. Yeah. So I know it's weird. I can't wear that shirt anymore in terms of pride, but I still love it.
Yeah. So we'll probably get that shirt in DC now, probably red, white, and blue for sure. But yeah, about the pool party, you talked about the tough shots. And that kind of is a part of his game because he is a heat check game. You know, you look at the playoffs where he hit that half court shot, you know, and he takes some unorthodox shots for sure.
Right.
But what are your thoughts about him playing point guard or shooting guard? We know he's a combo guard. He can do both. But what are your thoughts on him possibly starting at the point guard position at the Washington?
I think he's perfect. I think he's perfectly adept at either. I actually honestly think like he should probably be a point guard just because defensively he sometimes struggles when bigger players are matched up on him. They could body him up. He's just the defense is one of his issues, and I don't know what the answer to that is. So his 6'4", 6'5" frame would probably be better suited dealing with point guards who might be smaller because he doesn't struggle with speed per se, but he does have that traffic cone issue defensively sometimes where he just watches dudes blow by him. But he's got the ball handling. The ball handling is sound. He can carry the offense. He can lead the offense. I personally like him as a point guard much more than a shooting guard, even though I guess all these positions are just, social constructs in theory. But he's ultimately a ball handler, and he's great at that. He's a great passer. You're going to be dazzled by some of the moves he does to get inside the paint, to set his teammates up. No, you're going to be stoked. And my preference, though, is for him to be a point guard, just because if you have him as a shooting guard, that's a small backcourt, unless you got a big player to counteract that. So, but he could do either.
Right, 100%. So I remember the game he had 31 against Memphis in the playoffs last year against Ja. That was huge.
Yeah.
What do you see that change from last year's playoffs to this year's playoffs?
That's a good question. Because he increased the scoring from last year to this year. I mean, he averaged over 20 points a game this year. But his 3-point shooting went down. His field goal percentage went down. One weird category that went down was his free throw shooting. He actually was the number 1 free throw shooter in the NBA 2 years ago. They give a trophy for that now. And So Stephen Curry handed the trophy to him at the start of last season. And that number went down like 5 percentage points approximately. I don't know why. His turnovers went up. I think his assists went up, though. Either assists or rebounding, one of those two went up a little bit. So in terms of efficiency, that was a part of his game that was a little alarming this past year, is that even though he can score, he can obviously put the bucket in the hole. His shooting percentages dipped. And I think a huge reason for that personally is shot selection. Is instead of looking for that easier shot, he oftentimes would just start doing this weird little tactic he does with his feet, where like right when he's about to shoot, he suddenly slides his feet to the right or left to get a better look. but it's also challenging shooting like that, man. That's not natural. You're forcing it, and he does that a lot. Whereas 2 years ago, when they won the championship, he was not doing that much. His free throw attempts, I believe, were higher. He was just playing smarter, and I don't know if that's where the punch might have come into play a little bit. It was hard to coach him. Like, one of the worst things about that punch and that incident is that Draymond Green could no longer be the vocal leader he was last year. And Steve Kerr didn't help things by not suspending Draymond Green, because the impression in the locker room suddenly became Kerr being like this veteran sympathizer. And so he lost a lot of the young players in that locker room period. And so maybe from that, it became harder to coach Jordan Poole. It became harder to kind of be stern with him, let him know, hey, man, you don't have to take all these shots. And then there's a huge discrepancy as well between his numbers coming off the bench and him starting. Like, as a starter, he averaged over 24 points a game. And then I was arguing the whole season last year, dude, you got to keep this guy in the starting lineup, but Klay Thompson refuses to come off the bench. That's just not even a discussion. So unless Klay or someone's hurt, Jordan Poole just didn't have any space in the starting lineup. When he's a starter, he is awesome. Even his shooting numbers, his percentages are higher. So it could be just something as simple as that maybe just in his head, he is ingrained to be a starter and not a bench player. Maybe it was coaching. But whatever it is, like, he just needs to be smarter with his shot selection. Charles Barkley, who in my opinion is there mostly for comedic reasons, but he said something very astute about Jordan Poole, which is that he takes difficult shots. And I think he compared him to J.R. Smith or somebody in terms of another player who could have been a lot better in this league if he just did not force so many shots. We looked for open players sometimes and passed it. So that's Jordan Poole for you, man. Like, he's better as a starter, and I feel like he's going to start in Washington, which is a huge positive. And if he is just a little more selective with his shot, those percentages will go up. And I imagine that happening for Washington, man. I think you guys are going to be stoked.
Definitely, yeah. You got me excited, man. You got me hyped to see Jordan Poole for sure. The free throw percentage thing is very interesting. I didn't know there was a trophy for that. That's really cool.
I know, it's new. It's new. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
But he averaged 3 turnovers a game, which is pretty bad. So he's got to improve on that. But you got me pumped for Jordan Poole. You can go ahead, Brandon.
You should be, man. I mean, he's not a bad player. Like, it's a lot of the fans were not stoked that he got traded. I mean, this wasn't like a move that was universally like endorsed. I mean, you have a portion of the fan base that will be happy no matter what they do because they're that loyal. You have a portion of the fan base that has some skepticism. But look, he was on a championship team, and you just traded him away for a 38-year-old. On this side of the equation, a lot of people are perplexed by the move. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're Washington, you should be stoked, man. He's a solid player.
Yeah, I mean, because Chris Paul, a lot of the reports were that either he was going to get bought out or waived, or I mean, the fact that we got some value for him and a pick.
Yeah,
I mean, is I think the Wizards made out really good with this trade.
Agreed.
Absolutely. I already got his jersey on order, man. So I'm already rocking it.
Nice.
But the fact that we are a rebuilding team, and he's only 24 years old, and he's
Correct.
not even in his prime yet.
Correct.
Do you see him as a guy who can be a franchise cornerstone that the Wizards can kind of build upon going forward? Or do you think that, as far as the best case scenario for the trajectory of his career, that he would be maybe traded for assets? Do you think that he can be that guy as far as a cornerstone for this franchise?
Could be, yes. I couldn't say no to that. First of all, he just turned 24, so he's going to be 24 like all of next year. He's young, yeah. So he's going to grow. He's going to get better. That's where coaching, I think, is going to be very important, right? Is he's going to need some guidance in terms of not repeating mistakes. So to answer your question, yes. I don't know if he's ever going to be like, a focal piece of like a championship team. Might be. I think if you're looking at rosters and thinking, okay, we want to win a championship, he'd probably be like your third or fourth best player. If you're looking at your roster and thinking, hey, man, we just want to make the playoffs, he could be the best. Probably more ideally the second best. But you're getting a very like high caliber player with a tremendous skill set. Again, he's not going to be a disruption in the locker room. He's not the one who threw the punch. He got punched, so it's just he's a good dude, man. He's a good dude, and I think you guys scored a great player.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I'm very excited because, like I said, he hasn't even hit his prime yet. And he's already shown that he can score at a high level, man.
Yeah.
So I'm very,
Yep.
very excited to see him in DC. So, as you know, Bradley Beal, our former franchise player, was sent to Phoenix, and Phoenix is trying to create this super team. Golden State, how scared are you of the Phoenix Suns this year?
Incredibly, man. I mean, I literally just finished recording before I jumped on with you guys. And dude, the entire Warriors community fan base, they're freaking out because the tallest player on the Warriors roster right now is 6'9". I mean, Kyle Kuzma would come in here and be the tallest dude if he was added. They're a small, aging team, and me personally, I'm like really frustrated with Steve Kerr. Just because while he was clearly the right person for the job when he came in, they got 4 titles. He has not proven at all that he can develop players. He hasn't proven at all that he can manage a team with a mix of young and old. We saw what happened last year. It was just a complete mess. It was dysfunctional. So no, we're freaking out here, man, because I feel like the coaching staff, more specifically Kerr, maybe ownership. We have a new GM now. Bob Myers was a savant, man. The guy was a brilliant front office executive, and we just lost him for nothing. And now we have Mike Dunleavy Jr., who was never well liked here because as a former number 3 pick, he was awful. And now he's the GM. And so, we're holding off judgment until we actually, see what he does. But so far, when their biggest free agent acquisition is Corey Joseph, that's not exactly someone to get excited about. He's a third string point guard. Again, they have no size. I mean, Kevon Looney at 6'9", and their second round draft pick, Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, they're both 6'9", and that's your size, along with Draymond Green. They got size issues. They're not going to beat Denver. Even though the Suns are a bit more of a finesse team, you're not beating Phoenix right now. They just got deep, man. They just completely fortified their bench. So the Warriors are in trouble right now. I don't know what the end game is here, but this team looks an awful lot like the 2013 Lakers. That's the vibe I'm getting right now, man. Because the 2013 Lakers, they gave away 2 first-round picks to get a 38-year-old Steve Nash. The Warriors give up 1, but they also give up Jordan Poole to get Chris Paul. And if they somehow think there's going to be a different result than what the Lakers went through that season, which was, I believe, a 7 seed, and that was the year Kobe tore his Achilles. They're delusional. The Warriors are in trouble. We're not stoked here right now. That's for sure.
I mean, all roads go through Denver, regardless. But you can never count Golden State out because chemistry. You can't put a price on chemistry.
True.
The fact that chemistry is amazing with them. So before I pass the mic to my guy, when does the dynasty end? I mean, what is the kind of the long-term vision for this dynasty?
This season could very likely be a last dance, except there won't be a trophy at the end of it. Look, here's what it all comes down to. This season will come down to 2 things. One is Klay Thompson done? Like, was last season an anomaly and maybe he still has some gas left in the tank? He wasn't well conditioned. He wasn't going through his normal workout regimen the previous offseason because he tore his Achilles playing pickup basketball. And that's one of his key workouts in the offseason is playing on the blacktop in Southern California. And he didn't do that at all. And we saw a slightly slower, I don't want to call him fat, but he wasn't as lean as he's been in years past. So Klay Thompson aged this year. And whether or not that's the trajectory he's going to go down, which is just worse and worse and worse, I don't know. But if that is the path, they're screwed. If they can get another good year out of Klay Thompson, and you can get growth out of Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody. These are 2 players that were massively mishandled by Kerr last year, man. We didn't see Kuminga play in the Lakers series, and the Lakers were killing them with size. And Kuminga's 6'8", man. He's a big body. He's a big boy. He's young. So if we see Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga and they actually ascend it to fulfill their potential, yeah, man, this thing could keep going for another year or 2. But if these 2 young players are not, budding superstars, and Klay Thompson is continuing down this trajectory of regression, they're done. They're done. I mean, I don't see how they could beat the Nuggets. I don't even see right now how they could beat the Suns. I don't see how they can beat the Lakers, who got a lot better. They finished as a 6 seed last year, and all they did this offseason was add a 38-year-old point guard. They gave away their Jordan Poole for him. So there is a divide, I think, between what you logically see with this team and then what the brass thinks they see with their team. I'm curious, but I'm not excited, man. I don't know what you guys see, but that's my feeling on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see the 38-year-old point guard in Chris Paul. He's really good at race walking now in the State Farm commercials. That's what I see from him.
Exactly.
But I do think he's going to kind of steady the ship at the end of the games. Clay does take a lot of heat check shots, a lot of tough shots. Same thing with Steph. I mean, that's just what they're good at.
Yeah.
But I do think Chris Paul is a guy that will kind of steady the ship and calm the guys down and get some sets in the fourth quarter. So that's the one positive I could bring up from Chris Paul.
Yeah. Positive. I heard Draymond was on with Paul George, I think yesterday on George's podcast, and he brought up the point of Chris Paul helping Jonathan Kuminga elevate his game and take that next step. If that happens, great. I'm stoked. But I mean, look, I've been calling the Warriors a team of hobbits lately. They're a small team, man. The average height in the NBA is 6'7". The tallest player in the Warriors is 6'9". I don't know what they're thinking doing this, and they're not getting anybody in free agency. All they can do is use the veteran minimum. No one wants to come to them right now for some reason. Yeah, this is sketchy times, man. Very sketchy.
100%. So last, I just wanted to, what do you think about Pat Baldwin Jr. and Ryan Rollins? Which one out of the two do you think has the most potential?
They're obviously very different. Patrick Baldwin Jr. was not projected to be a first-round draft pick last year. Bob Myers picked him largely because he came out of high school as a total hyped up, projected to be a future superstar type player. He went to Milwaukee, played for his dad, didn't work out so well. He was injured most of that season too. When you see Patrick Baldwin shoot, his shooting form is beautiful. It looks like Klay Thompson's. And he's 6'10". He's a big boy. Like, I don't know if you guys go to media days or cover the team in person, but if you do, you stand next to, like, Patrick Baldwin Jr. is a massive human being. Unfortunately, he's not super aggressive. Maybe that's something that'll come out in time, but he was never projected to be a big either. He was drafted mostly because he's got a beautiful shooting form, man. I mean, it's just a nice shot. And if that starts coming through, you got to steal there. It's just a matter of whether or not he develops and becomes this player that he could be. Ryan Rollins is a player. The Warriors actually spent $1 million to move up, I think, 6 spots in the draft last year in the second round to get Ryan Rollins out of Toledo. They thought he was going to be NBA ready. He wasn't, but he averaged nearly 19 points a game for the G League team last year. And that was after a very slow start. So, like, by the end of the season, he was putting up 25, 30 points a night routinely. Now, granted, this is for the G League team, but Ryan Rollins could be a great player. Like, of those two, I would put much more hope and invest myself emotionally into Ryan Rollins, just because he could be a real NBA player. We could be seeing this guy for the next 10, 15 years. Patrick Baldwin Jr., if he stays healthy, has a place in the game just because he's 6'10", and he's going to stretch the floor. No one's going to leave him open to shoot threes. So those are like weird little nuggets you got besides Jordan Poole that I think helps your roster a lot. The Ryan Rollins part of it is what I'd be much more excited for, though, just because he could turn into a very good NBA player.
Wow, yeah, I like him coming out of Toledo. He's a guy who has some athleticism to his game, some pops, some explosiveness. Yeah. He's a combo guard too. We have a lot of point guards, but we definitely need some more young talent at that point guard spot. And then Pat Baldwin being 6'10" and a shooter, we need more shooting for sure. I've heard the Michael Porter Jr. comparison. So he still has a long way to get to
bigger though, but he's bigger. He's like 2 inches taller and just bigger. He's a big dude. Like, I was very surprised. He's a gentle giant. Like, he's quiet. Again, you don't sense a lot of aggression from him, but if that part of him is tapped, where he's actually out there acting like a beast, like, he could be an incredible player, dude. Text me when you see him shoot. When you start seeing him shoot the ball, and let me know what you think about that form, man, because it's beautiful. It's textbook. I don't like, if you had to create a computer model of like the perfect shot, that it would be him. It's exemplary. That's why he got picked in the first round. And if he turns into something, that's amazing. So I think I'd be stoked if I was a Wizards fan just on those two alone, besides Jordan Poole.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're playing on summer. I think they will be playing in the first summer league game on Saturday at 8:00. So I'll probably be texting you around 8:30 Eastern time.
Yeah, let me know, please. Yeah.
All right, Brandon, did you have anything before we wrap it up?
Got a quick question, real quick before we roll. I always put everybody on the spot, man. So, all-time top 5, or really starting 5 for the Warriors all time. We got
for the Warriors. That's a good one. I mean, obviously you have to take most of it from the dynasty just because they weren't winning a lot before this came. So Steph, Clay, and Dre are obviously on there. Rick Barry is obviously on there. And then the 5th, I guess, comes down to whether or not you want someone who like really invested himself. So I guess the 5th could either be like a Chris Mullin, or if you're looking at a player who was here briefly, was successful, you could look at Kevin Durant or Will Chamberlain. But I'm a loyalist, man. I like players who stay with their teams long term. So I'm going to go Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Chris Mullin, Rick Barry, and Draymond Green. Small team, but they will blow you out of the water.
Dang, no Monte Ellis?
No.
No, I'm just Beadrin.
He's all right, man. But as an all-timer, no, he's not in there. No, I would put Baron Davis in ahead of him. If we're gonna go to like the We Believe teams and stuff like that, but that's just me. I don't know.
Cool. I can dig it, man. So, I appreciate you coming on, man. I'm good.
Yeah, dude, it was fun. Thank you guys, man. Pleasure.
Definitely. Yep. So I just want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Make sure you guys check us out this week for covering the NBA Summer League. And make sure you guys follow our guy, Cyrus Saatsaz.
Thank you, sir.
At Dog Surf Roadshow on Twitter.
Yeah, that's a weird name too. But the only reason why I even roll with that is because like I had this podcast back in 2015 or 16 for Yahoo Sports. It was called the Dog and Surfer Roadshow. Really eclectic program. And so I created this Twitter account, Dog Surf Roadshow, to reflect that. And then Twitter verified that account and not my personal one. So then I just started rolling with that. And that's where we are. Yeah, Dog Surf Roadshow. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yep, anytime. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit the notification bell on YouTube. Subscribe to us wherever you guys get a podcast. Hail to the Wizards. Peace.